Tassenball, preparation for the National Hockey League playoffs and some Stanley Cup run. But it is baseball season, and the New York Yankees come to town here with a whole new coat of arms and a whole different crop of players and expectations. This guy spent 16 years covering the Yankees. He's now on the national beat at MLB.com, and you can follow his journey, and tens of thousands do, on Twitter at Feinsand.com. That's Feinsand. We welcome Mark Feinsand back on. He has a new book on the Yankees and fans and bucket list. And what the hell could be on a Yankees fan bucket list at this point? What have the Yankees not done other than win a championship in the Southern Hemisphere or something, right?
Well, the Yankees have done a lot, but that doesn't mean their fans have done it all. And one of those things is actually going and catch a game in Camden Yards.
Well, there you go.
A bunch of different road trips fans can take. And, things. Basically, the book is a guide to being a better fan. Things you should know, do, see, watch, read, listen to, etc., to enhance your fandom, and different ways to express that fandom and take in that fandom. And any Yankee fan that's never gone down to see a Yankees-Orioles game in Camden Yards, that's definitely a must-do.
Well, you got that on the bucket for this weekend if you want. So, dude, I'm a nerd. I did 30 ballparks in 30 days 2 years ago for the Bone Marrow Red Stream, ran around and did all the bucket stuff. And there's nothing more fun than this time of the year, just being a baseball fan, opening day, and sort of hopes, right? And I guess if you're a Yankees fan, there was never about hope there. It's, we're going to win 90, but are we going to win 108 this year, and are we going to win a championship this year? For this year with the Yankees, it's a whole different level of expectation and maybe a whole different way to watch baseball, along with the rest of us mere mortals who just, hope and cross our fingers every year.
Well, yeah, I think it's definitely changed around the Yankees last few years. You look at the last couple of years of 83, 84 wins, 85 wins, no playoffs. They they've had one playoff game in the last 4 years. That was that wild card loss to the Astros in 2015. So, it's definitely been a different kind of era for the Yankees right now. The latter part of the second half of the Joe Girardi era, obviously with the retirements of Jeter and Rivera and Pettit and all those guys. It's a different team. It's a different feel around that team. And right now, for the first time, there's some hope about the future versus the present. And I think when you look at guys like Gary Sanchez and Greg Bird and Aaron Judge, and then the other guys off in the distance, the Gleyber Torres and Justice Sheffield types, Yankee fans have a lot to be excited about going forward. I don't think anybody has the, delusions that this is a championship team this year. I'm not saying they can't contend. I'm not saying they can't get to the postseason. But you look in that division, and, you could make the case that they're the fourth best team in that division. Some people can make the case they're the fifth best team in the division. So, certainly a different kind of Yankee year, but I think one that the fans who were tired of seeing all of these high-priced veterans that they had no attachment to, the Ellsbury, McCann, Beltran types, they're excited to see some homegrown kids again.
Well, what is the expectation here then? How does this get measured for Cashman, for Girardi? What has to happen this summer for those guys to get extended? I mean, there's no secret to the fact that the thing could be blown up at the end of the year, that sort of everybody's on watch at this point, right?
Yeah, I honestly don't think there's much that could happen that wouldn't get them extended this year. When the Yankees decided to go for this youth movement, when they decided to make the trades last summer and bring in a lot of these kids, and bring up Gary Sanchez and the like, I think that was the sign that this is a long-term plan. This is not something that has to get done in 2017 or bust. To me, once they did that at the trade deadline last year, they may as well have extended Brian Cashman and Joe Girardi then, because barring a complete clubhouse collapse where there's infighting and the kids are all sniping at each other, and they all come out and have some big revolt against Girardi, I just don't see any scenario where Brian Cashman and Joe Girardi are not back next year. So this year is about development for the kids, seeing which ones of them are legitimate, what they can expect from them going forward. Is Greg Bird really a number 3 hitter? Is Gary Sanchez, the big power hitting strong catcher that they expect he will be and that he was last year? Can Aaron Judge cut down on the strikeouts? Do any of these pitchers step up? Luis Severino? I think it's more about the development of the kids this year than anything else.
How about the oxygen in the room there, dude? You covered this thing for 16 years. That's a pretty good 16 years, but in there, every drama from A-Rod through Jeter through Torrey staying, coming, leaving, going, Pettit and Clemens and, all of the nonsense that went on down in Houston with the Pete. I mean, there's always drama. Here it's just about, can you hit the baseball? Can you stay healthy? Are you going to be the next glory era guy? That's a different thing, I think, for these young guys where they get in there and there are sports writers and critics running around everywhere. There is a different level of expectation going to work every day than if they were a prospect in the Astros organization.
Yeah, but I think a lot of that's gone. I think a lot of that, they've tamped that down to a large extent. The Yankees were a rock show. They were rock stars for a long time, and they were a traveling, rock concert when it was Jeter and A-Rod and Giambi and Damon and Matsui and Clemens and Pettit and David Wells and all these big, huge names and big, huge stars and future Hall of Famers and guys swirling with controversy and
throw Messina in there too, just because you stole him.
Messina's one of my favorite guys I ever covered. So I would never. Me too. But Messina was hardly the guy who swirled controversy around him. He was not.
His controversy with whether he was going to do the Boston Globe or the New York Times crossword this week, I think, was the question for him, right?
That was about it. No,
that's Moose.
Right but there were such larger than life personalities and in that clubhouse for such a long time, and they were winning. They were at the top of the mountain. They were hunted all the time. I just don't think that exists anymore, and so now it's really become more of a baseball situation than it used to be, where yes, you're a Yankee and there are expectations that come with that, but certainly not to the extent that it was 5, 10, 15 years ago.
He is Mark Feinsand. The new book is New York Yankees Fans Bucket List. Here's the problem, Mark, promoting this book for you out on Twitter at Feinsand, is that it's a book about the Yankees, but every one of us, they're like cockroaches. Everybody's got a Yankees fan in their life, right? So whether it's Father's Day, Mother's Day, Christmas Day, everybody knows someone that's eligible, right, for this book because they're the Yankees, right? So tell me about the book a little bit. I mean, I've written a bunch of books. Why this one? Why here? Why now? And give me a little Amazon primer on it, if you will.
It was a fun project. It was a chance to sort of look at the fan base from a whole of okay, my son is 11 years old. What would I tell him to do to, to become a better baseball fan and a better fan of his team? He's got two grandfathers who grew up within spitting distance of Yankee Stadium, so there was no question that in this bloodlines he was going to be a Yankee fan. Talking about things to do at Yankee Stadium, going to Stan's Sports Bar for a pregame, or doing the roll call and sitting in the bleachers, things that you don't get the whole sense of these kinds of things from just watching on TV. And there are certain things that every Yankee fan should experience. And go to Camden Yards, go to Fenway Park, go to Cooperstown. There's a whole section of the book about 15 or 16 great moments in Yankee history that you need to know about. And I went to talk to a lot of the people who were involved in those moments to try to get a fresh take on some of them. And, talking to Reggie Jackson about his 3 home run game, or talking to David Cohn about his perfect game, or David Wells about his perfect game. Just a lot of different things. And then there's the last chapter in the book is actually things you can do from your house to become a better fan, whether it's reading Bill Madden's great Yankee books or watching the Yankees on Seinfeld and Saturday Night Live. And, a lot of things that you don't think about that are pretty iconic in the Yankee sort of the chain of their history that you get a good sense of from this book.
Yeah, the Cone Perfect game mentioned pisses me off because I was supposed to go to the game that day and see Springsteen that night at the Meadowlands. My pal sort of begged off that morning, and it was one of the other no-hitters that I was supposed to go to that I didn't go to, and I'm still in search of.
I don't want to hear it. I gave away tickets to David Wells' perfect game because I wanted to stay home and watch the Knicks in a playoff game. So that's number one. And then the Cone Perfect game, I had tickets to it, and I was working at FoxSports.com at the time, and I was heading up their golf coverage in the office, and it was the British Open final round, and I had to work that day, and I gave my buddy Matt the tickets, and he got to see a perfect game, and I didn't.
Have you seen a no-hitter, a perfect game? You've seen a lot of baseball.
The only no-hitter I've seen 2 no-hitters in person. I saw a World Baseball Classic no-hitter, which was a 7-inning no-hitter.
That doesn't count. That doesn't count.
And I saw that Astros 6-man no-hitter against the Yankees at Yankee Stadium. It was a legit big league no-hitter, but it was 6 guys. It just didn't feel the same.
That's wrong. I mean, they're both kind of crooked. I've got two. How about this, dude?
I was at Messina's 8 2/3 perfect, where he gave up the 2-strike hit with 2 outs to Carl Everett. That was the closest I've ever come to seeing.
You know where I was that night? That night,
like that.
I was sitting in the club at Jack Murphy Stadium with Tony Gwynn. I sat down and did a 2-hour sit-down with Gwynn, and that game was going on. At one point, I had to stop the tape because we went over because it was a no-hitter. Yeah, and you mark these points in time, and the next night, by the way, I walked out of Bud Smith's no-hitter in the 4th inning and flew home. So I've walked out of one no-hitter at Jack Murphy. I was at the last 6 outs of the Juan Nieves no-hitter, the Brewers, Orioles back in the 80s, but I've never legitimately, I've legitimately sat down and seen 7 innings or 8 innings and had somebody busted up, but I have never shown up just per chance and made all 9 innings of a legitimate no-hitter. That's never happened.
Yeah, no, that
it's hard, man. It's the holy grail, dude.
One, but
6
pitchers didn't have quite the same feel as if Messina had gotten that last strike in Boston.
All right, dude. What do you make of the Orioles? I mean, I got them at 78 wins, and I'm not being mean. I just know when teams have their number one starter on the DL when the season starts, and their backup plan is Ubaldo Jimenez and a couple of kids on the farm, and they don't walk, and they're station to station, and they're going to hit 220 home run. I get all that. I just, when you can't start and you can't pitch, it's hard for me to have a lot of confidence, and I didn't love their offseason.
Yeah, I didn't love the offseason either. I think they have the potential to contend in this division just because I think everybody in this division has flaws to some extent, and you can win a bunch of games 9-7 if you need to. You might not be. Obviously, you look at the middle of that lineup is as good as anybody's out there. With Davis and Jones and Machado and Trumbo. I like their offense. To me, the whole question for them, the bullpen's great. The whole question is, can Gossman and Bundy, any of these guys, step up and take that next step? And I think we just have to wait and see. I think 78 wins is completely foreseeable, and I think 89 or 90 wins is foreseeable, depending on how the rotation goes and whether Tillman can get back healthy. I don't think I would, go to Vegas and run to put money down on them to be in the postseason, but I certainly think they should be in the mix for one of those wild card spots.
Mark, what do you say about the Machado sweepstakes and the Harper and the Trout and all? I mean, that sort of lies at the back of all of this for Orioles fans to say, all right, if not now, then when? I mean, almost, sure Duquette will be running out of here at the end of next year. Buck's deal's up at the end of next year. Adam Jones's deal is up at the end of next year. The old man's up there in New York running around the New York Supreme Court, fighting with all of his partners over $400 million. I mean, this is a sloppy, messy, weird time, and the expectations here are not high, but the Machado thing sits in the middle of all of it because they're either going to build a statue for him down here, but no one here really believes that, especially on the back end of what we saw with Messina, and we laugh about it. It's been 15 years now, but no one expects Machado to stick around.
I don't know why you would. I mean, it's hard to imagine the Orioles giving him what he wants or whether or not, even if they're willing to do it, that some other team is not going to be willing to give him more. I mean, you're talking about arguably one of the 5 best players in the game at an age where, the thing that's so unique about his free agency after 2018 and Harper's free agency after 2018 is how old they will be. You're looking at guys who will be 25 years old, barely entering the prime years of their career. Usually free agents don't, typically for years, free agents wouldn't get to free agency until, 29 or 30 or even 31 because players weren't getting to the big leagues until they were 24.
Yeah, well, look at where Pujols was, right? I mean, when he got his money, and look at how that turned out.
I think Pujols was even older than that, I believe. Remember the Cardinals had signed Pujols to a 7-year deal, before when he was still there. When he was a free agent, I think he was already 31, 32.
Yeah, he banged around as a failed minor leaguer, sort of like Sammy Sosa and a bunch of those guys sort of banged around a little bit before they found it. I mean, these guys are more like the Robin Yount era, right, where they found it when they were 20 years old.
Yeah, I mean, it's very Pujolsian in terms of, that guy came up at 21 and was an all-star and hit 37 home runs, 130 RBIs, and hit 329 that year, an OPS over 1,000. Manny hasn't put up those numbers, but, look, at 25 years old in free agency with the kind of glove he has and the kind of bat he has, he's going to, that guy's getting $300 million somewhere. And, I think the most logical fit at the moment would appear to be the same route that Messina took, which is to go to New York. Third base is the one spot the Yankees don't have a big-time prospect at. Machado would seem to fit that bill. They got the A-Rod's number 13 jersey all ready for him. And, I think that's going to be one that I think, right now, if I think there's one automatic fit, it's Machado to the Yankees in 2 years. So that does present sort of a weird window for the Orioles here. I wonder if the Orioles talk to his agents in the next year and try to get a feel for what they have. Do they trade him? Do they trade him next winter?
See, they wouldn't do that because they don't have the foresight to do. They don't have the stones to do that. They don't.
Well, if
they've never done it before,
they're not going to be re-signing him. If they know there's no chance they can re-sign him, I think the way that baseball is now, you have to look at maybe trading him because otherwise you're going to lose him for what? For a draft pick?
Yeah, why not trade him this summer to the Yankees and get 3 prospects for him?
Well, I don't think they would trade him to the Yankees, but you could trade him
if the
somewhere.
Yankees could be, they wouldn't. That my point is they. Well, then what would the point be? I mean, that somebody else would want to rent him for 15 months.
Well, yeah, a team that thinks it's in a window to win the World Series next year, would say, well, this guy would put us over the top. And look, in this era, except for the Cubs right now, there's no team where you say, oh, well, that team's in the midst of building a dynasty. So if you have a chance to win, even if you just win one is better than none. So. I think if you looked at a lot of teams and said, this guy puts us over the top and can get us that World Series this year, you've seen teams make those deals before. The Cubs just traded one of the top 5 prospects in the game for a closer for 2 months,
Sure.
So if you think you can get 15 months of Manny Machado that can help put you over the top, well, that's something a team would be worth looking into.
My opinion is that Peter Angelos would have to be in a coma for that to happen. I just don't think he would do that after 23 years of witnessing it here.
He might not. But I think if you've reached the point where you think there is 0% chance, I'm not talking 1%, I'm talking 0% chance of re-signing this guy when he becomes a free agent, I think you have to look at it responsibly to look at your franchise and say, are we better off getting these 4 prospects rather than just losing him in a year.
You can follow him at Feinsand out on Twitter as well as at markfeinsand.com and at MLB.com. The book is the New York Yankees Fans Bucket List. He's been covering the Yankees for a decade and a half and now covering all of Major League Baseball. Are you buying with the Cubs selling, Mark, or are you on the Indian bandwagon, the Red Sox? Which voodoo do you believe here as the season kicks off?
It's hard not to believe in the Cubs. I mean, I covered them the whole postseason last year. That lineup is just impressive and young. And, the only question you'd have is, do they have the same hunger that they had last year? I don't know if it's going to be the same, but I think the idea of repeating and doing it again, and I heard Theo Epstein recently say, somebody said, well, how do you keep your team motivated? He said, well, we've won 1 World Series in 109 years. We need to do better than that. So, I think they're still motivated to become the first team, since the Yankees to repeat, first National League team I think they'd be since the Reds in the 70s. So, there's still a carrot out there for them to chase. I do love the Indians this year. I kept looking for reasons not to. And I think you wonder sometimes when a team gets that close and misses out, is there that hangover effect? But, you bring in Encarnacion, you get guys back in Brantley, Carrasco, and Salazar who weren't part of this thing last year. Remember, they were all hurt. So they're right there. You've got 2 big hitters and 2 big pitchers who didn't get a taste of this thing last year. And I think that's going to, be a big help for them. Tito Francona is as good as it gets in terms of keeping his team motivated and keeping their eye on the prize. So it wouldn't stun me if we saw a repeat of last year's World Series, though. Obviously, very rarely that actually works out.
Hey, dude, keep the faith up there. We'll check in during the Major League Baseball season. Good luck with your book up there. As I've said, everyone has a Yankees fan that they are trying to make happy. I don't know that they'll be made happy this year with the championship. I don't think the expectations are there. But at least as we win 2 out of 3 over the weekend, life is good. Mark, we'll send everybody out to follow you at MLB as well as out on Twitter and at your website at markfeinsand.com. Thanks for coming on, pal.
You got it, buddy.
You got it. Mark Feinsand up in New York, but he's all over the country now after 16 years of covering the Yankees for the newspaper types up there. He's moved to MLB.com. Go follow him out on Twitter as well. You can find me in the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world. The morning newspaper ships to your email inbox at 7 a.m. That's all brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.